These are the faults of technology. So today, types of pop-up stores creates the events and delivers them with the utmost detail. Many things to think about, many things to be done, and all of these details I'm going to discuss with the agency that does it all. I will have the pleasure to be talking to Anna from PopUp Mob, and here she is. I'm going to connect with Anna right now in order to discuss all of these points that I have
Hello.
earlier pointed out. Hi, Anna, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine, I'm great. So I was doing an introduction and had a technical fault. So
It
I was
happens
left
to the best of us.
exactly. Anna, thank you for joining me. I was introducing the services of Pop-Up Mob in a very general way, but I want you to take the time to introduce yourself and to introduce Pop-Up Mob to us in order to contextualize our discussion to all of those who are joining us right now.
Perfect, of course. And thank you for having us. So PopUp Mob was born 6 years ago in New York City. I'm one of the co-founders, and the whole idea was, as actual consumers, being millennials, being international, we felt that the whole retail experience was a bit stagnant. So as a consumer, what was it that we wanted to, experience ourselves? And the idea was born from, I was living in Milan doing a master's, and there was an old bar that was closed. And sometimes I would pass by it, and there was an experience or a lady selling scarves. And then the week after, there was a lady selling bags. And that kind of stuck with me. And it's that freshness for you to experience new things, and it's highly tactile, experiential with all the senses. So that's where it was born in New York. It's been great. It's been 6 years of a lot of fun. We are in a lot of different industries, from fashion to beauty to music, entertainment, food, art. And we're a one-stop shop. So what that means is that we can help you with everything from the actual strategy, which, believe it or not, there's a lot of strategy in these pop-ups: where, when, how. There's also like, if you want to do a tour, where do you start, where do you go, so you have the best ROI, bang for your buck. Then from there, doing the concept. So we help you with the concept ideation portion in terms of making it highly sensorial, unforgettable. And as you know, there's so much competition nowadays that that's the funnest of what we do in terms of pushing the envelope, trying new things, thinking outside the box. Then from there, we help design this experience based on the strategy and the concept, and we help bring it to life. So executing it, building it out, finding the location. And once the doors open, we can help with inventory management, point of sale, staffing, anything you need operations oriented. And we're a la carte, so we can either help with everything, or we can help you fill in the blanks.
Perfect. So you have highlighted many aspects related to pop-up stores that most of us do not take into consideration when developing such projects. And you have highlighted the importance of paying attention to all of these details in order to have a successful pop-up store that stands out today in today's competitive retail world. So Anna, let's talk specifics, and let's talk about the types of brands who can be interested in pop-up stores. You just mentioned that any brand from any industry could pop up anywhere. So let's elaborate that idea a little bit further.
Definitely. I think that, fastly in the past 6 years, pop-ups have turned essentially in a 3D way to advertise. So the reason why it opened its doors to so many different industries, it's in essence the purposes for why you pop up are many. So you can be launching a product, you can be testing a market. It's a great way to have a first-hand relationship with your consumers, or you perhaps want to do brand building, or you're a seasonal business that only needs to be at a specific time or place, or perhaps you're an e-commerce site, which means that you want to give your consumer the possibility for them to test, try, touch, to gain their loyalty, for them to want to buy from you blindly after they've experienced your brand. So this is why more or less it serves as a mix between retail and advertising. I mean, for example, when we work with entertainment clients, let's call them, promotional, when they're, let's say that they are launching a new series, they do a pop-up because it's a great way to immerse their consumers in the actual series. So when we did the 90210 pop-up, for example, it was a great way to build that kind of set design of the show and give the consumers the experience of the show before it even aired. So being able to eat, in the Pitch Pit Cafe and go to After Dark. So it has infinite possibilities in terms of how to use these pop-up experiences and how to engage with the customers. I mean, even so now, like, we're using this medium for COVID testing. So, it's a little different from what we're used to, but that shows you the versatility that this realm has.
So we're talking about a medium that is that could be used with any brand in any case, but most importantly, it has to be done based on a very clear objective that the brand wishes to achieve through that pop-up or pop-up event, if we shall say. So what are the requirements today of brands in terms of their pop-up projects? I mean, what does a brand have to have before he comes into you and before he asks you for a pop-up project?
So, as you can imagine, we have every type of client in terms of that. We have the clients that come and say, we have this product, we know exactly what we want to do, we want to do it here, we want to do it this way, help us execute it. Sometimes we have clients that say, we are thinking of opening a store in, let's say, LA. That's it. So we're like, okay, great. So you're giving us basically full creative flexibility to help you with the strategy, or perhaps sometimes propose and say, this city is not going to work well for you based on market studies. Why don't you think about Texas, let's say? So, I think that in terms of the requirements for coming to us, it's as simple as having an idea and being open to the possibility of pop-ups, because at the end of the day, it is a disruptive business model. It's not your usual retail stores that we've been used to for decades and, centuries, if you may. So having that open-mindedness and, it's great. It takes you really far. And we've had some really successful case studies of brands that have accomplished what they wanted and more, and they come back, and that's when we know we did a good job.
Perfect. In that case, what you were explaining right now is that a client can normally come and approach you or your agency in order to develop their pop-up stores, either giving you the full flexibility to do whatever you see fit, or by giving you certain directives. Would you, on the other hand, flip that process and go towards brands whom you think might need your services in terms of pop-ups?
Definitely. I think that, we have a very creative team and we're always brainstorming ideas. And it's been a really interesting past 6 years, because at the beginning, of course, our elevator pitch has changed in the sense of letting people know what we do, what is a pop-up. And thankfully it became a thing worldwide. Pop-ups are becoming super predominant and popular in a lot of cities. And of course, you had the early adopters, such as New York and Los Angeles and London. And now you see second markets that are starting to hop into the pop-up wagon. like Paris and Berlin and Toronto and Chicago. So it's been very interesting because there's a lot of education that we've had to do in the past 6 years. I think at first it was mostly those early adopters in terms of brands and cities that would be reaching out for us to help them with their pop-ups. And now that it's become a common thing in a way, a disruptive common thing, now it's easier for us to knock on doors and propose to brands to do pop-ups, and a lot of brands are super open in trying different things and seeing where that takes them, just because, excuse me, because of the competition that we just spoke about, where it's an oversaturated industry, retail that is. And if you want to diversify yourself in the marketplace, then definitely you need to push the envelope, think outside the box, and provide something for your consumers that it's engaging and exciting. I feel that nowadays we're moving at 1,000,000 miles per hour. We don't have time. So our time is worth gold. And if we're going to spend it inside of a store, it better be worth our time. Otherwise, consumers are super difficult and they're just going to keep going.
Yeah, they got bored of everything that has been in front of their eyes. So pop-up retail today is becoming the new normal and is being considered, as you said, by many brands on the market. So let's talk about now the specificities of handling a project by your agency. So a brand comes to you, you accept to work with it. Okay, what's the next step?
So it's a process, as everything, and we like the brands to participate as much as they want, just because we understand that no one knows better a brand than the actual, people that work in it or the owners. So we like this to be a joint effort in terms of collaboration, in terms of, the ideas we come up with. So we usually work on a weekly basis. We start with the strategy and the concept. Once that's been approved by the brand, once that's been, tweaked by the brand, we move on to the next phase, which we grab this concept and we design it. We have a team of very talented designers that turn it into renderings, decks, and material selection. We basically make it like alive in terms of the visuals of it. So that's a really fun process that we, keep collaborating with the brand. We keep sending them, the direction, details, and that can take anywhere from 2 weeks, which we've done, to 6 months, depending on the vastness of the project. If we've done projects that are a year, 3 months, that change every, let's say, 6 weeks. So depending on the complexity of the project, we like to spend a lot of time in the strategy and the design portion of it. Once we've finalized the design portion, then it's about bringing it to life. So this is where my colleagues that are super talented in terms of project management, and that's where my business partner, which is Rita, which you're going to talk to her next week, that's where they take everything that we make and they bring it to life. So turning it into all the technical drawings we need, finding the location. So they have really good relationship with landlords and companies that specialize in finding locations. If we do, let's say, a pop-up truck, then again, getting all the permits from the city. So it's very tedious, very labor intensive. And once that's brought to life, then we open the doors, and then that's when we bring in the staff. Training the staff is really important because they're essentially representing your brand and selling it and talking about it. So that's very important in what they do. All the scheduling, all the management, the logistics, if it's you're selling a product, then it's restocking of that product. If you are, let's say, inventory management and reporting. So all of the reporting, because this is super valuable data that you're getting from, your consumers. So how do you make sure that you are able to acquire all that data, analyze all that data, and that it's not about just ticking the box of having a nice experience. It's how can you optimize this model to get as much as possible in return. from a sales standpoint, from a data standpoint, from a press standpoint. I mean, endless again. So that's more or less the process that we would take a client through.
And Anna, this process is so detailed and elaborate and would need a lot of time and I think a lot of budget. We talk about that in a minute. However, the life cycle of a pop-up store could be as short as a day or two.
I know.
So it's always that matter of budgeting that comes in hand when developing a pop-up store. Could you elaborate a little bit on the idea of budgeting and investment versus the life cycle, the short life cycle of a pop-up store?
Yeah, I mean, I think personally that's something that I had to come to terms with, right? We worked so hard for so many months and then it's there, you see it, you're so happy with it, and then boom, it's gone. Which I guess that's what separates us from, let's say, architects that when we spend so long building this and then their buildings last forever. So that's something that we had to come to terms with, but it's cool, it keeps you on your toes. And I think in terms of budgeting, I mean, as you can imagine, they come in all shape and sizes. I think that when we started PopUp Mob, the whole idea as well of being born in the retail world was for emerging brands, just as ourselves, because we were an emerging company, to have that shortcut to retail. And
Yes.
this world has become, the pop-up world, so incredibly competitive, as we've spoken about, that budgets have also increased because everyone wants the craziest experience, built from scratch, tech hefty, sensorial. So you can imagine. But staying true to our core in terms of why we even started the business in the first place, we have devised new ways in which emerging brands can participate. So that's when we do collective pop-ups, when we have, let's say, 10 to 20 brands, we have a host. So for example, the last one we did was for The Skim, which is a publication in the US. And each brand pays a really low fee, and that way you have a big budget that you can do something worth visiting, because also we don't want to be competing. And this is PopUp Mob. I understand there's other companies that do it differently, and that's super cool, because I think that there's a seat at the table for everyone, where for us it's about quality, and we want to give our consumers that we've built the best experience possible. We want to give our brand customers the best experience possible. So in this way, for example, with these collective pop-ups, we can achieve that, and we don't have to compromise quality or just putting a sign in a door and a bunch of racks. And if it's
Sure.
competing against a sample sale or a bazaar, like that's not what we are, definitely.
So you focus, so if we just recap, you work with high-end brands, mature brands, or brands that are already established. But on the other hand, you want to give a voice for smaller brands or startups through these collective pop-up stores, in order for them to be able to participate their audiences in that experience and still do it in a nice way and a qualitative way. But
Definitely.
every time you're talking, you are stressing on the term of experience, which really goes hand in hand with pop-up stores. So let's talk about these experiences, and how does a pop-up store's atmosphere or format help in designing and delivering that experience?
Definitely. That's a great question. So for us, a pop-up store is essentially storytelling. So like we said, it's a 3D way for brands to tell their story. If it's, let's give an example, you're launching a new product. What is it that you can do that's going to tie the launch of the product to other campaigns, to the story that you're telling about this specific product? Is it you giving the consumer the possibility to be in this campaign that you shot? Or is it something about, it can go so many different ways in terms of this experience. It can be about catharsis, where you're getting something in return. It can be about customization, and I think that I mean, all humans, but I feel specifically millennials and Gen Z, they like to feel part of the process. They want to feel like they put the last touch. So if you can give consumers that, you know, you are bringing, basically building emotions, and memories, and you are bringing, this really tight relationship with the consumer. Their memory of this amazing experience that you gave them is what they're going to remember about you. So this is what we try. We work with 5 different pillars every time we design a pop-up, and it's all about tapping into those emotions, using all the senses if possible. I mean, we like to do pop-ups that smell a certain way. What you hear is something specific, not necessarily just a playlist. You know, it's all being fully curated. And to us, when it's curated in a subtle way that's not in your face, that's when it creates the best memories. You know, that's why for us, attention to detail is so important. For example, when we did the benefit diner, attention was in the details, where we actually went and looked for an old diner and took over and painted it pink. And even the chairs were your usual diner chairs, but we upholstered them benefit pink. We put, you know, a vinyl with benefit in it. Like, the napkins had benefit in them. Like, we did a collaboration actually with a really great Lebanese brand called Milk. They do this really great ice cream sandwiches, and they did them benefit pink. They created a specific flavor for benefit, you know, and it made sense, which this brings another super interesting topic, which is collaborations. Collaborations optimize your experience to another level. And, you know, for us, they need to make sense. So, for example, because we were recreating a diner and it was a makeup brand, partnering up with an ice cream company was great, because it was making that experience being true to what a real diner experience was, to nostalgia. Yeah. So nostalgia is another element we always like to bring up. We always think about when we were kids and how happy and easy life was, and we didn't know it, right? So that's another thing we like to tap into. But yeah, it's so a little a recipe.
So if we can just recap these main elements, a pop-up store's success is not only about design, it's about engaging sensorial designs that create experiences and that help tell a story that can be memorable and that the customer could take away when he leaves that pop-up store. And a very important note is that you do not develop things that are very flamboyant or out there. It has to be a subliminal way to pass on the message through the design or through everything that's being done. I was curious to know if customers do co-create their experiences when they are in the pop-up store, because if you're engaging so much the customer, is it only about experience or co-creation of an experience?
100% is co-creation. I think that, you know, I like to speak with examples because it's easier. If you compare a pop-up to another form of marketing, let's say digital, which yes, it's a screen and it's an advertising that says something, and it, you know, what you see, that's what you see. In this pop-up experience, there's so many different touch points that every person that goes in, they co-create their own experience and they craft their own memory. You know, is it that they went with their best friend and they were able to do, you know, a specific activity together, or take a picture in a fun, you know, photo op together, and, you know, it's about the whole day that they experience, and how PopUp Mob and the experience on a specific brand was part of that day. So, you know, to your point, yes, I feel it's a co-creation, and I feel that that is the what completes the process, you know, the how the consumer feels when they're there, and their emotions and the memories that they craft.
In line with that thought, would we also design pop-up stores to be able to help customers have a social interaction when visiting the store? If I rephrase the question, what is the importance of the social dimension of designing a pop-up store today?
Okay, so that's a really good question, because I feel that even though that this experience is very personal to the consumer, um, social media is a plus, right? Social media is an organic way to create, more word of mouth, to get other people that have not gone excited. So it's a very easy way for the brand to have organic promoting. That's not through PR, that's not through press, which that is equally important. But if you did a great job where the consumer wants to post about it, and that goes to their full network, and then that network talks to their network and goes see it, that's why social is so incredibly important in these experiences, just for this
Yes.
organic virality, if you may.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's funny because when we started, for us, it's been always so much about the five senses, even six with your intuition. And when technology started to become important in pop-ups, it was, we wanted to be very cautious in terms of how much technology we would incorporate within these experiences, because we feel that we're stuck to our screens every day, all day. We're with our phone at all times. So if we can create safe spaces that people can disconnect and connect with each other, there's no need to have so much technology. So, and even in this pandemic, it was very interesting, let's say 3 months ago, when we were thinking, how do we pivot? Do we do, virtual pop-ups? And it was just hard because it was going completely against why we started this company in the first place, and it's a bit reassuring to see that 3 months later, I mean, I don't know about you, but like most of my network and friends, they don't want to be in a Zoom call or a FaceTime or a virtual event anymore. They don't want to go to a virtual concert or to a virtual store. And I think like that's what makes us human, and that's why this pop-up world grew so incredibly fast.
So again, in pop-up, we're highlighting this human dimension and the importance of touch in the experience. Now, Anna, in an omni-channel context, how can a pop-up store make sense as being part of a brand's holistic experience?
Okay, so I love this question because I feel that in the industry, the answer to this question has been changing abruptly in the past 6 years. So when we started the company, there was this whole recurring theme, saying that retail was dying, that e-commerce was taking over, and it was kind of, a battle.
A clash.
A clash. And I think that this has abruptly changed, and it's become, predominant, and it's important to note that they can both coexist. Retail and e-commerce can coexist. They don't compete directly against each other. Yes, of course, at the end of the day, if you buy online versus in the store, they're the ones that are getting the money. But at the end of the day, it's the same brand that's selling, through distributors, in their actual retail stores, or through e-commerce. What should be important is that the sale happens. Doesn't matter how it happens, but that it happens. So to us, pop-ups are this bridge of online and offline. Because if you go and you have this amazing experience, you fall in love with the brand, so it's top of mind, you're going to be buying it. It doesn't matter if you buy it there in the pop-up, or if you go to a store later on and buy it there, or if you go online and try, you're a savvy consumer and you find the most cost-effective site that sells that product that you experience. But what's important to note is that sale happened. It didn't matter how. So I think that in an omni-channel way, pop-ups help in bridging this online offline gap, and it just helps to kind of hug everything together and create this ecosystem where everyone has to collaborate with each other.
Yeah, so I think we're out of this mindset that an additional channel would cannibalize the other channels. We're rather in a collaborative retail aspect, and the pop-up store would come and bridge in or help doing what it should do to the brand. I
Definitely.
just need to tell everyone, and this is up to you, of course, Anna, if they have any questions or comments, they could send them in, and you would be able to answer them later. So let's talk about the details of the services that you offer to your customers. And as you said, I will be having a talk next week with your partner, with Rita, to talk about the specifics, the operational aspect. Now, in terms of the importance of location, which we talked about earlier, what could be labeled as an ideal location for a pop-up store?
Okay, I think a couple of things. Of course, first rule of real estate: location, location, location. It is very important where you are, because you're there for such a small period of time that you want to have as many consumers as possible in terms of the different types that there are, right? You have your passing by consumers that they don't know you're there, but because you're in a high traffic street or area, they see you, they come in. Then you have the driven in consumer, which they either saw you at a publication, or they saw you in social media, or through an influencer, and they go. And then you also have the driving consumer from word of mouth, saying, hey, I just went to this pop-up, you should go check it out. So to tick the three different ones, location is really important. Now, second important is your neighbors. So it's really nice when you're in a street and your neighbors complement that brand. So that's something that we pay a lot of attention to. It's this same type of brand, and I don't mean competing against each other, but let's say that you have a brand that's young, that's fresh, that and next door you have a bunch of brands that are young and fresh. Maybe they sell something completely different, but you know that your type of consumer is going to be going to that street because they're looking for similar styles or similar brands in terms of what they stand for. So that's really important. Now, for us, build out, like we said, is equally important. And sometimes if you're in a city like New York, for example, real estate eats the majority of the budget. So that leaves you with not a lot of budget to do a competent experience. So it's a very thin line. Now, if we've done a lot of pop-ups in the music world, let's say, and these music artists, they have such a big fan base that for them, we tell them, don't do it in a location that's going to cost you so much, because basically through your social media channels is where your fans are finding out you're there. So spend more the build out, and they're going to drive to you. They're going to go wherever you are. You can have a bigger space. You can have a heftier pop-up. So what it comes down to is what type of brand you are and what's your purpose. But if I would have to do top three, it would definitely be location, 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 and your neighbors, and then what type of brand you are.
Perfect. Now, let's say a pop-up store is there. It has been planted in the right location. And after a couple of days of finishing that or wrapping up that pop-up store, you need to measure its success. It's an important point that you mentioned at the beginning. What are the performance indicators that you use in order to measure a success of a project?
Okay, so a couple of ways. Let's call it, the first one is the basic package, which kind of comes included with everything that we do. And that's from social media, so UVMs, impressions, in terms of, that's why, for example, assigning a specific hashtag to your pop-up is very important, because it's a very easy way for you to quantify it at the end, seeing, mentions, UVMs, etc. That's the first one. The second one is from a data standpoint. So data you get from your sales associates. You know, it's very important to have, like we said, engaging sales associates that are asking questions, that are, and they're not so much on your face, because, you know, I'm a very picky shopper. I don't like to go in a store and have someone breathing down my neck trying to sell me something. It's more,
Sure.
you know, this is a friendly dialogue. And that's the beauty of pop-ups. We're not selling stuff all the time. It's mostly marketing. So, I mean, what I mean by that is, yes, we're selling, but people are going there for an experience. So they're a bit more open in terms of talking to sales staff, because they don't feel that they're going to be selling them something. So the amount of data that they're able to gather, you'd be surprised of how incredibly advantageous it is. Then when you're selling, you also have your point of sale. So your point of sale, we partner up with POSs that are highly reportive. So we have really engaged reports in terms of what products sold the most, what time of the day. You know, you can do a lot of A/B testing, because if you're, let's say, thinking of launching a product, either white or red, you can see what sold the most. You know, what are their ages, you know, in terms of demographics, who did you sell to, where do they come from. And then we have an added layer, which is great, because I feel that a lot of brands, especially the bigger brands, they can allocate part of their market research and R&D budgets into this. So we work with these systems that are heat mapping, and facial recognition, like complying with data privacy policies. And you can get extremely granular with the amount of information that you acquire. So it tracks eyeballs, it tracks time. So if you look at an item for, let's say, more than 3 seconds, it means you're engaged. If you look at it for more than 6, it means that you're interested. You know, and there's all of these basically conclusions that you make out of all of this data. And that's been great, because this data, you could never get it from anywhere else to this granularity. And you can be super specific. You can say, listen, I want to do a pop-up in Aspen and see how this specific product performs. And you can do that, you know, and that's another beauty, that, like, as this world keeps growing, the pop-up world, there's a lot of other things that are proven that you can get out of it, more than just an experience, a connection with your consumer, sales, and press. You know, it's data, it's, you know, tweaking your R&D. So it's essentially, for a lot of brands, mixing a lot of their budgets together. It's their marketing budget, their retail budget, their wholesale budget, their R&D market research budget. So, you know, it's cool. It's cool how each brand is looking for different things, and we're just here to make it happen for them.
Perfect. And we mentioned a little bit earlier about the importance of licensing, insurances, and all the paperwork, or the heavy work that no one likes to do, and that you could you could help your brands with. I mean, especially when you're working with these modular or mobile types of pop-up stores, at what extent the event needs to be carefully planned in order not to have any negative surprises on the day of the pop-up?
Oh, okay. Let me tell you, you will always have a negative surprise. I think, like, our mindset is already set on that, because, listen, this is a highly you know, adrenaline driven process, where so many things have to come together at the same time. You know, you're talking, I mean, the list goes on, but you're talking location, that everything works, signage, the furniture, painting, build out, the staff has to show up. Always something goes wrong, you know. But I think that in our company, and you know, I'm so proud of every single person that works with us, is that we have the mentality of there's always a solution to a problem, because we're not doctors, you know. It's not a life or death situation. Thankfully, you know, we're in such a globalized world that we can fix it one way or the other. So I think that the most important thing is that in the planning process, you do account for plan B, plan C, plan D, just in case, you know. And it's good to communicate this to clients, because some clients understand this more than others. And it's just letting them know, listen, things are going to happen, but we're here for you. It's that hand holding that's very important, being very honest and saying, okay, In case something happens, this is our plan B. In case something happens, this is our plan C. And that way, you know, you're able to navigate and move as fast as possible, because of course, if already time is money, you can imagine in the pop-up world, that is times 10, right? Because sometimes you
Yeah.
have one day, like we said, so you only have that day and that's it. So I think, like, you know, that's where it becomes a little stressful, and Rita will tell you more about this next week, because from my end, you know, it's mostly design and strategy, and so much can go wrong. It's just maybe the client doesn't like it and you have to go back to the drawing board. But I really, really, you know, feel for the project management team, because I know that they've had to deal with some situations that have been highly stressful, for sure.
So it's really about anticipation and about contingencies, and this is really important in pop-up retail planning.
Very
Perfect.
important.
I think with you, Anna, we've done the round of questions and important points that need to be highlighted in terms of a pop-up store strategic organization, conception, and design. However, I would like you to share with us some of the success stories or some of the pop-ups that you think were really special and that we need to talk about.
Definitely. Okay. That's always a difficult question for me. I think, like, you know, you work so passionately in these projects and we don't take them slightly, that I feel I have favorites every year. So I'll talk about, you know, I guess the latest projects that we've been working on that were, you know, so fulfilling. In December, we did a Huda Beauty from Dubai. So beauty brand, super successful woman entrepreneur. So just there, we were super excited to work with her. What she's been able to create in just 5 years has been incredible. And her vision, I mean, she has such an amazing vision. And she wanted to create, you know, a self-standing, made from scratch, so everything customized, pop-up. It was her first pop-up in London, so in Covent Garden. And it was tied to her campaign, which was called Mercury Retrograde, and to other campaigns that she's done. So, I mean, in itself, from an engineering standpoint, this was very challenging, and it was so fulfilling, because we had to create this structure from zero that resembled a diamond, basically. It was all of these facets that were iridescent, that had neon. So imagine, you know, building a pop-up in the middle of a plaza, that's from 1750, that you have to have a lot of electricity, and it has to come up in 5 days. And, you know, there was a lot of pressure because it was her first one, and there were a lot of expectations. And, you know, everything inside was custom, from the base where all the makeup went to, you know, there were infinite amount of photo ops, and then even the trays, how everything was showcased, it was as if you were in Sephora. So it was very interesting, actually. What I love about this project was that Huda came to us, and in let's say like 1 year ago, and we didn't have our London office back then, and we did an RFP, and they told us, listen, we loved your proposal the most, but Huda is adamant on working with a local agency because she knows how these projects go, and she wants to make sure that she has someone in London, you know, that's there to give it the attention that it deserves. So of course, you know, it was not what we wanted to hear. We kept going, and I was coincidentally talking about, like, synchrodestiny in London, doing a pop-up in September. So this was 3 months before the pop-up, and I get a call from Huda's team, and they tell me, we need your help. This is a bit urgent. Okay, what's up? And they tell us, we're not happy with who we hired. We want to bring you guys back in. And I was like, well, I mean, we went from having, you know, 8 months to having 3, if not 2. And she was like, Huda gave us 1 week. We need to present to her. And if she likes it, she's going to go forward with this project. Are you guys in or out? And we were like, we're in, let's do this. So, you know, it was so much work, from from our team. Imagine in 1 week we had to do what I just spoke about, that we take 2 months or 2 weeks to do. And it was just, you know, like high alert, and it was awesome. It was so awesome. And you know, Huda loved it, and we moved forward, and it was really challenging because it was this structure from zero that now, after that was done, we had a little over a month and a half, you know, maybe
Yeah,
two.
yeah, yeah.
And it was great. It was great. I mean, actually, for that one, I did a lot of project management, like the old days. And yeah, it was very stressful, but it was very successful. I mean, in terms of the press that she got, in terms of the, you know, people that she got. I mean, she got thousands of people a day in sales. So it was all in all an amazing,
A
amazing
success.
pop.
Not to mention alone the dwell of people coming into Covent Garden at that time of the
Yes.
year. Yes, and it was, I think, an attraction. We invite everyone to check it out on the website. Um,
Thank you.
because it was really a beautiful project. I had the chance to look at it up close, and it was really a beautiful project.
Thank you.
Anna, I think most of the people who like to engage in a pop-up store would like to have some tips that you can share with them and that could help them think about conceiving a successful pop-up store. So what tips can you give us?
Okay, I think the most important tip I could ever give you is always remember that you are a consumer yourself. So I like to tell people to put themselves in the shoes of a consumer, which you already are, and starting from walking in the street, right? If you're walking in the street and you see a window, what are you going to see in that window that's going to tell you, wow, I want to go and check that out? So we call that the hook. So having a hook is super important. And it's relevant to you, you know. I think like sometimes we don't value this idea that we ourselves are consumers and we have to trust in our intuition and that. So I think like that's the most important, because retail is something that all of us do, some people more than others, in terms of shopping. But what is it, first off, that's going to tell you, wow, I want to go in, I want to see what's going on? And then once you're in, as a consumer, what would you want to see? You know, are you interested in touching something and smelling it? Are you interested in customizing it? And I think like you and your close ones are very good case studies to you know, throw ideas at, to see how they react, to see if they like something. So I think like that's a very good rule of thumb, that I use every day, that our team uses every day, and in terms of tips, I mean, what I always tell my customers is like, I tell them, and these brands, listen, everyone can do a pop-up. I think PopUp Mob is just here to make you, you know, have a more, you know, smoother, seamless experience, because like we said, it's a puzzle. There's so many different pieces that are coming together. It's very easy to forget some things. So definitely planning. It's almost like measure twice, cut once, type of idea. And I would say that the third one is that having contingency plans, because things will go wrong, and that's okay, you know, like
Yeah.
it's normal. So instead of them being a surprise, expect them, you know, because you're gonna do the best, but you are relying on so many people for these experiences to come together, you know, from the landlord to the person that paints your pop-up, to, or if it's you painting it, what happens if paint, you know, ran out and the store is closed? Like there's a lot of things. So having those contingency plans are important, because definitely time is of essence. I think those are three tips
Perfect.
I recommend.
I think also that it's really important to highlight those, as keeping this in mind and knowing that we have to plan, but still have our contingencies will save us a lot of trouble on the day of doing the pop-up. But I think that with you, people would be doing it with the right people and putting their projects in the right hands, I'm sure. Anna, thank you so much for this conversation and for all of the info and the tips that you shared with us. And I'm inviting everyone who is in session with us to join us next week to continue talking about what PopUp Mob does with Rita. And if they have any comments or questions, maybe we can also try to answer them next week. And by
Perfect.
that, I thank you so much for
No,
joining me
thank
today.
you. Thank you for the opportunity.
It was a beautiful conversation, and I tell everyone today that the session would be available on IGTV, so they can consult it if they didn't have the chance or missed the beginnings of it. Thank you so much, Anna, and see you, Rita, next week. I know that Rita should be watching us.
Yeah, she should.
Today.
Thank you so much, Galia. Take care.
And good luck with the beautiful coming projects.
Hi, thank you so much.
Ciao, have a nice evening.
Bye, you too.
Bye.